Everybody can hear me okay here? Good to be with you today. We, of course, in America very much appreciate free speech and people being able to express themselves. So we're pleased to have an example of that here today. I'm here to talk to you about shapeholders. It does include protesters, is part of what I'm talking about. But this does have a major impact on reputations, corporate reputations, but it impacts nonprofits and everything else. So I've orchestrated this presentation just for you, reinforced exclusively with my own photos, to shed light, in this case, on how, just like this tree was obviously shaped by somebody outside of it, the opportunities and risks the corporations and other organizations are shaped by outside forces. And if you get to know how to engage them, life will be like a walk in a Paris park. But if you don't, you'll find yourself having opportunities cut short or operating in environments that are just too frigid in which to operate. This is my porch back home in Minnesota. Another week or two from now. We have a big focus in business on the market, which includes a focus on shareholders and stakeholders. True stakeholders are your employees, your customers, your suppliers, and the communities in which you operate. And they do impact your business, and you do need to learn how to engage those. But I'm here to tell you that outside of that, in the non-market, is what I call shapeholders, that shape your market environment and have a big impact on you. And those include political actors, regulators, the media, and activists that may come out and protest against you or your company. And when you think about it, they're different than stakeholders. Greenpeace, the only stake they want in a coal company is a stake in their heart. So to think of them as a stakeholder is wrong. But Greenpeace can shape the opportunities available to that coal company. So that coal company needs to engage with those activists, but not as if they were stakeholders like their employees, but as if they're shapeholders. So they need a completely different approach when they really have no interest in your success. They're just trying to press their point. If you don't learn how to deal with these shapeholders, it can be very dangerous. You'll find in business that they're trying to shape where and how you drill for oil, where you get your food from, where you're fishing from, who you're lending money to. And also on the regulatory front, they're trying to shape you. As we've seen, Volkswagen lost $26 billion in market value in just 2 days because of not engaging with regulatory stakeholders in an appropriate way. BNP Paribas was fined $9 billion for not complying with regulations dealing with money laundering. And the EU is now going after a lot of American companies on how they're paying their taxes. With Starbucks just recently being told they have to pay $23 million more. And we have the regulatory authorities in a variety of different countries going after companies because they say they're monopolistic. Right now, EU has got open investigations into Google and is moving forward also with Amazon. When you're in a country where the media is less free, or where your judiciary is less independent, oftentimes these activist groups are less able to operate. You have a lot fewer activist groups here in Turkey than we do in America. But you may have a more activist government that is influencing the conduct of business than you would in other countries as well. So there's 4 different shapeholders: the political, the regulatory, the media, the activists. Which are most powerful in which country varies by country. And you as a business executive, as a business manager, need to understand that. Many people say business is the heavyweights in Washington and Ankara and other capitals around the world. But I'm here to tell you, having been a Fortune 100 top 5 executive, been a member of Congress, not just engaged in America, but around the world. I helped Pillsbury buy a little company called Haagen-Dazs and spread that around the world, as well as engaging politically around the world. And I'm here to tell you that rather than the voice of business being like the roar of a tiger. I was surprised to find out that it's more like the meow of a kitten. Not because business isn't big and strong and powerful, it is, but when it comes to engaging with the stakeholders, too often it's reactive, combative, and tentative. And so as a result, businesses pay taxes coming and going. In America, they pay the highest corporate taxes in an industrialized country. And they have layers upon layers of regulations that are imposed on them that makes it harder for them to do their operations. We've gone from a day when Adam Smith's invisible hand guiding the markets based on individuals pursuing their own interests is increasingly being replaced by business in a political age where the hand of government just reaches down from the sky and helps you slow down and you get even closer to 30 kilometers an hour. This is the world we live in today, and businesses need to know how to engage in that world, how to engage with these stakeholders. And when you substitute the market for the non-market, you find increasingly that beyond just businesses are also shaped in a similar way. You take, for example, Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts is a youth organization helping girls in America. Rainforest Action Network went after them for their famous Girl Scout cookies because unknowing to them, they supposedly had some oil there, palm oil from Indonesia that was hurting the rainforest. So it became a huge problem for the Girl Scouts. So every organization faces these stakeholders. It's a risk for them. It's an opportunity for them. They need to learn how to engage them. Just like this potter is shaping the pot, your opportunities, your risks are being shaped by these outside forces, and you need to learn how to engage them. But too often, businesses just say when they face a situation like we just faced, I want to weigh out, I want to put up the fight. And that these activists, these reporters, these politicians, they just don't understand you. And that's true, they don't understand you, but most of the time, businesses don't understand them either. And so too often, they're like ships passing in the night, or even worse, ships colliding in the night. When I was in Congress, I had a farmer tell me that he didn't want me to focus on things that impacted the price of corn by pennies a bushel. He wanted me to focus on what would impact the price of corn by dollars a bushel. And I'm here to tell you that much of what they teach in business or in business schools and others is how to deal in the market. And business people are generally good at dealing in the market. That's a well-plowed field. And they invest millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in perfecting skills in marketing, logistics, and other operations, but so are all their competitors. And so as a result, when it comes to the end of the day, it's only meaning pennies a share, not dollars a share. But whereas business is generally good in the market, when it comes to this tunnel vision of the market, they're generally, when it comes to the non-market, the stakeholders, what my daughters call my fashion sense, clueless. And because they're clueless, they miss opportunities, they step into problems. Take Facebook. Facebook is available to 6 million people in Ireland, but Facebook is not available at all in China. And as a result, Tencent has moved in and taken that space, and Facebook has lost tens or hundreds of billions of dollars of market value by not having access to the Chinese market and having a huge competitor to grow up to come after them. On the plus side, you have companies that have shaped their whole business to appeal to concerns that people have and deliver that to them. Whole Foods, delivering healthier foods, has created tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of market value by being responsive to stakeholders and making sure that you are addressing their wants and concerns. My belief is in the long term, the best opportunities that businesses have to create a sustainable differentiation is to engage in a win-win way with stakeholders. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Stakeholders shape market opportunities. I had a flashback moment when I was walking through India and I saw this guy on the phone hooked to the wall by a cord. Back when I was young, all of our phones are that way. And your choice of phones, where you could either have a color of banana yellow, or if you preferred, you could have banana yellow, because you had one phone company that provided you your telecommunications service. That same company gave you your phone. That same company was the retailer for the phone, provided the operating system. It was all a monopoly. But then, shareholders changed that. We had the Supreme Court break up AT&T in America. Then they had a new regulatory law that opened up opportunities. And so as a result, because shareholders changed this market, you can get your phone service in America from AT&T or not. There's a number of other people you can get it from. You can get your phone from Apple or not. You can get your operating system, Google Android or not. And you can buy your phone literally anywhere. My favorite is right next to the bubblegum machine at my alma mater in Macy's. So all of these opportunities, when you think about people around the world have a plethora of opportunities. You might not have had Apple or Google had there not been this regulatory change. And as a result of this regulatory change, it's opened up lots of opportunities for consumers, but also lots of opportunities for business. So you have to be paying attention to these shareholders that are creating these opportunities and also risk. The same thing is going on today. If you look at Uber or other sharing services, they are dealing in hand-to-hand combat in municipalities and countries around the world, shaping a new industry. And there are many other industries being shaped as we speak. So I have an approach called 7 steps for shareholder success as to how you engage these. They begin by how you prepare. You align, you anticipate, and assess, puts you in a good position vis-a-vis these stakeholders. And then once you have assessed, you have 4 action steps you can take. You can either advance, assemble, avert, or acquiesce, and I'm going to go through each of these very quickly. Let's start with align. First of all, you have to align with the government, but not so close that you're in crony capitalism. If you look at what happened in Petrobras, where you had true crony capitalism going on, they took a $17 billion loss earlier this year. Several businessmen that were engaged in this are in 16-year jail terms right now. The Prime Minister just got impeachment proceedings going against her. The Speaker of the House is under investigation. And the GDP is down 4.5% this quarter, all because of crony capitalism. I'm not talking about that type of alignment. I'm talking about if you align your external affairs activities in line with what you're really good at in the business, you're going to find that it's good for society and good for your business. Let me give you an example. Nike has decided to embrace the purpose, and I believe every company needs to embrace a purpose that benefits both their bottom line and society. Their purpose is to expand physical activity. Obesity is a big issue in many countries around the world. The more physical activity we have, the healthier people are. When they do things to promote physical activity, that means more Nike tennis shoes, more Nike t-shirts are being used. So it benefits them at the same time as benefiting society. You look at AB InBev that makes beer. They focus on clean water. Because if they're in Mozambique and they're using whatever clean water is available to make their beer and there's nothing left for anybody else, people aren't going to be happy. They need clean water to make beer, so it makes sense for them to focus on it. But if you think about it, if Nike was focusing on clean water and AB InBev was focusing on physical activity, they would neither of them do it as well. So business and society is better off if all your activities are focused on something that aligns with what you're specifically good at in your business. Secondly, you need to anticipate. You need to expect the unexpected. One day, Mattel woke up and somebody had put a banner on their headquarters with a Ken doll saying to Barbie, "Barbie, it's over, I don't date girls that kill rainforests." And this wasn't anything that Mattel did or anything Mattel's supplier did. It was what Mattel's supplier did. So you as an organization, they're not going to go after the supplier someplace in Indonesia that nobody's paying attention to. They're going to come to somebody's headquarters in a major media market and protest you. You need to anticipate that ahead of time. You need to figure out which cannons are pointing at you, and you need to look right up the barrel to figure out what they're going to be shooting at you. Who are the activists in your industry that really care about this? What kind of weight are you leaving behind, and how are other people evaluating that way? You need to investigate yourself. You know, when you run for a campaign, the first thing you do is you have somebody go and dig up all the dirt there might be on you, so that if somebody comes after you, you're prepared to respond to it. You need to know more about yourself than you even do about your opponent. And companies are the same way. Because when you get hit, you need to be prepared for that emergency when the attack comes. You know, we have a lot of schools that teach students how to protest against businesses, against other leaders. If you want to learn how to put up these banners on big corporations, go to ruckus.org and they'll train you how. But most business schools don't teach businesses how to play defense, much less how to play offense. And your business needs to have a good story to tell. And if you're not telling that good story every day in an offensive way, you're going to find yourself on defense. Going back to Nike, they were swimming along, making lots of good profit, and all of a sudden woke up one morning and found themselves being painted as the culprit, the poster child for child labor. And they paid a heavy price because of that. Even though it's decades ago, people still remember it around the world. That's the negative. On the positive, Toyota convinced California to let them use their Priuses with just one driver in the multi-driver lanes of their freeways, which obviously helped California have a more responsible transportation system, but clearly allowed Toyota to sell more Priuses. So the thing I want you to remember is that Nike's stumble and Toyota's boom were not a result of what they did in the market, but what they did in the non-market with stakeholders that can make a big difference. So you need to understand how to engage those. To really be able to see those and anticipate those, you need to have a wider vision. In a market sense, I encourage you to have a very narrow focus on just what you're really best at. That works in the market, it doesn't work in the non-market. You have to have a broader focus. And the thing you'll find is that we each are a product of our environment, where we grow up, what our parents do for a job, what we do for a job, what we studied at school, which school we studied at, which country we've been in. All of that impacts how we view the world. And yet, it's limited to those experiences. Just like a submarine, we're surrounded by all those experiences, but a submarine knows that it needs to have a periscope that it can take and see all around at 360 so that they don't bump into anything. We need to do the same. We need to have that 360-degree view that understands the business issues, that understands the political issues, that understands the broader societal issues, and not just in our own country, but around the world. How do we impact that? So we not only need to take the best from academia, what they have to offer, we need to understand not just our own business leaders, but the business leaders of other countries. Not just our own political leaders and what they're thinking, what they're pushing for, but the political leaders of other countries. We need to understand not just our own history, where our society came from, but how about the other countries' history that we're operating in, and how that shapes how they view things. And we need to understand not just our own religion and how that impacts the environment we're in, but other people's religion as well. And we need to be focused on the least among us and how they are impacted by the activities of our businesses. To do this, I always encourage our students that they should read both something that's a voice of the right. In America, the voice of the intelligent right was the Wall Street Journal's editorial page, and the voice of the left in America, New York Times would be an example of where you can get your view of the left, and to have something international, to focus on what's going on outside of our country. So whatever the equivalent is in Turkey, I would encourage all of our students to read that, because you need to understand those different views. Because when something comes at you, a New York minute is 59 seconds too slow. When you get hit by an attack by an activist group, you need to have thought about it ahead of time, anticipate it, and be prepared to respond. Third, you need to assess. And this includes both is the challenge they're giving you legitimate or not, and can you win or not? If you go to battle in that issue, will you prevail? You look at legitimacy from both a moral issue, because a lot of times they're being put forth as this is a black or white moral issue, and other times it's a policy issue. You have to look at both of those. You also need to, when you're figuring out can you win or not, what are the benefits or costs to both you and to the activist groups? If you're protesting somebody like we were just doing today, what are the benefits they get? They want to have some good feelings, some press, some other things. And even though Shell didn't stop drilling in the Arctic because of the protest, it was because they didn't strike oil, they can still claim victory and go and raise a lot of money for their activist group because of this. So you have to think, what's in it for them? Are you really going to win this battle or not? Similarly, you need to assess when I'm dealing with regulators, am I going to prevail or not? AT&T ended up paying a $6 billion breakup fee in their proposed acquisition of T-Mobile because they ultimately didn't get regulatory approval. They must have assumed they were going to get it when they agreed to pay the $6 billion breakup fee, but they clearly didn't assess it accurately. So getting that assessment is important. And then based on that, how do you act? And the acting that I put forward is this matrix of, is it a legitimate concern or not? Can I win or not? Is there upside in it for me or not? And depending on where you are in those 4 quadrants, there's a different way that an organization should respond. We'll start with advance. If you look at Siemens, Siemens found that there's a common benefit to them to subsidize, provide funding for technical training in countries around the world. Because Siemens does a lot of great things for the world, but it requires somebody smart enough to run the machine. And if there's nobody who knows how to run the machine in Nigeria, you're not going to be able to sell the product in Nigeria, so it's in their interest to provide technical training. That's an example of advancing Siemens' interest, at the same time as creating a more educated workforce and a more dynamic economy in countries around the world. When Tide comes out and has concentrated detergent, so you need less detergent to wash your clothes, that's less packaging, less trucks on the road shipping it, less emissions going there, so it's a benefit to society. At the same time, it's a benefit to Tide and the retailers. When Barclays sponsors, pays for half of the rent-a-bike program in London, Barclays gets associated not only with their name out there, but their name out there associated with good physical activity, helping obesity, as well as a good, clean energy environment. Sometimes, though, you got a legitimate issue that's really not going to help you. But I cannot tell you how many times I've had people come to my office in Washington and say, we don't like this bill, we want you to help us stop it. And I say, it's a legitimate issue, what's your alternative? And they have no alternative. And the one thing I want to tell you is you can't fight something with nothing. If you have a legitimate issue, you need to figure out something that will be less bad than whatever else they might do to you. The soda companies get a lot of people giving them concern about obesity issues. So one of the things they did is Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, everybody got together and they had packaging identifying on all individual packages how many calories there is in this. So they're making that information available to consumers. Their view is this is an individual choice. Individuals are acting responsibly. We're going to give them the choice to do that. So if the companies ever feel as if there needs to be regulations by the politicians, this isn't required. If they want to require something, here's an example of something they could require that would address the legitimate concern in a less harmful way to the company. Acquiesce. Sometimes it's an illegitimate concern, but it's just not worth fighting over. I can give many examples. The easiest to understand is the Swiss. If anybody's read the book Heidi, you know the Swiss love their cows. And they think their milk is better than everybody else's milk. Now, is it any better than Turkish milk? I'm not sure it really is. It's probably an illegitimate concern on their part, but you're not going to win that one, which is why McDonald's, of course, is Swiss. They're Swiss in the sense that they decided to buy all their milk for Switzerland in Switzerland, just not worth fighting over. The one area, though, that you really need to focus on is when you do have to fight, when you have to assemble the win, you have something, they're asking you to do something that's really not legitimate, it's important to your business, you need to win this one, how do you do that? And those things happen more often than not. And to do this effectively, you need to focus on what, where, who, and how. Let me start out with the first, give you an example on the what and the where. You first need to know that the question is always the answer. Political battles are battles over questions. Who establishes the question in your mind? Because sometimes when you're answering the other person's question, you're losing. You want to make sure that your question is the one that is operating when they're making that decision. Let's just take intellectual property. Our movie companies and our music companies were concerned because people were stealing digital copies of movies and music and costing them lots of money. So they wanted to pass a law that would make it more difficult for foreign companies, foreign websites, to help steal this property. So the movie companies, Sony's, Paramount, Viacom, all those came and they proposed a question. Should U.S. companies assist foreign companies in stealing U.S. properties? If you have that question in your mind, of course the answer is no, they shouldn't, so we should pass a law doing something about that. That was their what. Their where was Congress. They were asking that to Congress. They had a bill, it had lots of sponsors of both parties. It was just about to be passed when all of a sudden the digital companies came along and said, we have a different question. Our question is, do you want the federal government to black out your internet access? And many of the companies, internet companies, literally blacked out their internet and put a little note up there, Congress is trying to do something, call your congressman right now. Flood the Congress. This bill that was going to pass, lost. So new media beat old media because they had a better question. They played in the arena of public opinion instead of Congress. They had a better question, they won. You need to understand that it's a very competitive world out there and you need to have a good question where. The other thing is who. Cookies and milk are very different from each other, yet they go very well together. Your most powerful allies are the ones that look the least like you. If you're really going to get a majority support, you can't just have one slice of society that's on your side. You need to be reaching out more broadly and creating allies in the coalition of a diverse group of people that are coming with you. And when I'm dealing with these activist groups, I differentiate between those that I call care activist groups, that actually want to entice business to act more responsibly. And even though this tiger looks very ferocious and scary, World Wildlife Fund is actually one of those care activist groups that works collaboratively with business. And then there's stick activist groups that really just want to beat business over the head. And their approach to changing your behavior is just make it painful for you to act in an irresponsible way, and they really don't want to collaborate at all. So even though this lady looks nice and friendly from Greenpeace, Greenpeace is typically one of those stick activist groups that would take a more aggressive position. And too often businesses, when they have these stick activists coming against them, think that the solution is just make a contribution or we can cover with a check. They take the attitude that nobody drinks, nobody shoots the bartender when the drinks are on the house. Well, guess what? After they've had a few drinks, sometimes they do shoot the bartender. So you do have to engage them. You can't really work with people that want to clip the wings of capitalism, that don't think that your business ought to exist, or that thinks your business ought to be a regulated utility. So you need to build up a team that will help win in these situations. And that team will help you when you're up against the barricades and have protesters out there, and will come to your defense to help you. But a broad a team as possible is what you need to do for your coalition. And then finally, how? How do you target your message to the right people in the right channels? And this is, too many people think it's all about lobbying. But certainly in America, where activists for the protests like you just saw are what's common, it's really more that you need to have a broader, not just they want to hear from constituents in their district, but they want to also get that message out there in the outside world. You need both an inside game and an outside game. And you need to have a clear message. When the energy companies were being attacked, they kept reminding people how many jobs we create. And they had that all over to get that message out and make sure you understood it. When I teach my classes, I show this two dispensers of China Daily and Political. And I offer extra credit to my students if they can find anything negative about the Chinese government on the front page of China Daily, or anything positive about the U.S. government on the front page of Political. And so far, I haven't had to give any extra credit for this. But my point is that every company needs their own China Daily. Because China Daily is the way China communicates to people that care about China. Your organization needs to make sure that you have direct communication channels to those who care about your organization. Because the other side will try to make the story sound very complex and confusing and paint you in a negative light. You can't just let the media be the ones who are deciding how you are portrayed. You need to be able to make it very simple for people so they understand, even though you're hearing X, Y, or Z, it's really this simple. Here's the answer. And you need to make sure that the people that are dependent on you, their employees, your true stakeholders, know about that. And you need to get directly to their mobile device and other things so that you're communicating with them directly. And if you don't know how to run those new things, just get your son-in-law to show you how you run them. So, what, where, who, how? I hope I opened up a new dimension for you, that engaging with these stakeholders is important for business to do, that they need to focus not just what's going on in the marketplace and the boardroom, but what's going on the street, what's on the TV, what they're protesting about, what the people in the Grand Assembly are doing, and that if there is a societal issue out there, think about that as how do I relate to that as a business? Can I address that issue in a way that benefits both society and the bottom line? That businesses engaging in this broader way can have a huge positive impact on the world and make it much less likely that they're going to have a disruptive event like VW did, and much more likely that they're going to be capturing a new opportunity like Whole Foods did. We have heavy headwinds in front of us, but I believe we're really at a pivot point, and we can avoid the crash that we might otherwise have with society if we learn how to balance shareholders, stakeholders, and shapeholders in a positive way, tap that inner urge within all of us to be that superhero, dive in and figure out how to make a better world, and solve the puzzle of how do we leave a better world for all of our children.